This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Starcom Radio Network, Digital Satellite Network, and the Digital Broadcast Network. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main website, where you can listen to the X-Zone 724, 365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is Rev Judy Miller-Dienst. She is the president of the Mystery School. Their website is themysteryschool.org. Now, Reverend Judy is a medical intuitive and lecturer on medical intuitiveness. She is a metaphysical teacher, president of the Mystery School. As I said, she's also a clairvoyant, clairsentient, and clairaudient. She has also been instrumental in miracle healings. She's authored a book entitled A Conversion from a Mind to Soul, 3 Steps to Recognizing and Bringing Forth Your Soul's Desire. And it's been nominated for the Best Book Award in the Spiritual and Inspirational category by USA Book News. She's completed studies in psychology, mind science, medical intuition, and she integrates ancient Oriental healing systems of Reiki, clinical hypnotherapy, medical intuition, numerous DNA series modalities, and contemporary body-mind research. Once again, her website is www.themysteryschool.org. And Reverend Judy, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm honored to be invited.
Oh, Reverend Judy, we're happy to have you. Tell us what started you on your path to the Mystery School.
Wow, good question. I grew up in Ohio and eventually in the 70s moved to California, where there was much more opportunity to move into studies in this realm. But as a little girl, I always had interests in the different realms. No one in my family ever spoke of let's say, psychic talents or anybody that they've ever known within our family having any intuitive abilities. So for me, I always had a sense of being different. I would have prophecy dreams. I would, it was back in the 40s, and I would prophesize. I would see in my mind's eye a dream, color television, the different kinds of things like that. And so when I mentioned, in Ohio, it really wasn't a place especially when we go back, I'm 70 years old, so when we go back into that time frame, there wasn't the openness and speaking of all these things that we can do or we can know intuitively. But when I moved to California, it was very much a spiritual pull. I felt like I needed to be there, and I did have family there. And the very first class I ever took it felt like I stumbled into it. I wasn't seeking it. I was in corporate America. But I was on the board of directors, and I was invited, as well as the whole group, to attend a class that was what I later found out, really tuning into or what I call the clairs, as you called clair sensitive, clair audience, etc. And once I took that class, and it was an intensive, I awakened to understanding all that I could see and hear and feel, and I had that skill then under my belt where I understood why I was feeling pain that was not mine, seeing it travel in different parts of the person's body and so forth. And it was another 15 years, actually, of corporate America before the universe really was guiding me into that which I really, my soul's desire, which was bringing forward to educate people, to help people, and so forth. And so after about the time I was leaving corporate America, it was because my health had declined from the stress, the negativity, and so forth. And so as I was in that position then of trying to discover what am I going to do next, I didn't want to be in corporate America anymore. I was pulled, I want to say, because I see that the universe does that with us, maybe pull us sometimes and push us other times. But I first took the steps into hypnotherapy as a modality where I could help people with my medical intuition abilities underneath the hypnotherapy status, which was just beginning to be approved in mainstream. And so I didn't speak, because the class that I took didn't call the work medical intuition. We know Carolyn Mace, I really call her the guru of medical intuitives, coined that term. And that brought us, those of us that could do that type of energy healing and witnessing, brought us that term that was then mainstream acceptable. And so we're going back 20, 25 years with that. And so that was 1990 then when I began my practice. I had studied hypnotherapy very deeply with an organization out of California, so that it wasn't a simple little weekend study at all. And through that, I began, Source would bring me other teachings that would take me to other levels and adding more and more and more to what I call my toolbox of skills. And so the undercurrent of everything seems to be the medical intuition. And so the more and the stronger my spiritual path has been, and my own personal healing spiritually, and then the growth, it has taken me to such a complete connection with the divine that has all the answers. So my skills further developed, my abilities continue to grow to where, yes, I've experienced some miracles. I know that when people compliment me on what I'm able to do, I give it over to the source. Whatever, I'm interfaith minister, so I honor all paths. So whatever we want to call that energy is that energy that is what I consider the creator and knows everything that's going on in every person's body, let alone their life.
Exonation, my guest this hour is Reverend Judy Miller-Dienst. She is the president of the Mystery School, and her website is www.themysteryschool.org. Why do you think, Reverend Judy, there has been such a turnaround with the way that the public and even skeptics are starting to look at the work that medical intuition is doing within the established medical fields?
I love that question, because I've been around so long, I have seen that period of time of that shifting, and it's like it's been shifting for a good 30 years.
Yeah.
And I feel that the shift is going to continue. It was a time to assist, I believe, in the awakening that is going on the planet, that we're not just, we're absolutely not a body, but that we are a soul residing in this physical container while we're here to further grow and develop, whatever our souls desire to, in our form of serving other people, and learning to love ourselves in the framework of all of that.
Sure, I think.
And so
I think we have to give the hippies credit for that, going back to the 60s, because they you know what, Reverend Judy, I believe that they were just slightly ahead of their time.
Yes, and I'm an old hippie.
Are you?
Yes, oh my gosh, yes. I'm from yes. In my 20s, I was in it was the 60s.
Really?
And so, sure, I mean, I'm 70, so, I've seen a lot. And yes, as an old hippie, I believe that's what helped me awaken, too, to when I really went into that philosophy and understood it, and it was okay to be different. It was okay to think outside the box, and in that framework of the love and the wholeness. And it's interesting because my oldest grandson is 21 now, but he is a nouveau hippie. And I love that the hippies, the new generation of hippies, are coming forward, and they believe and they speak and they teach the same things that we did back then.
Well, just listen to, the music of the 60s, the Good Vibrations. A lot of songs were love-based. Where Have All the Flowers Gone? And then you had the songs that were protesting the war in Vietnam. These guys
Jerry Garcia.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And the rest of the great ones, the Beach Boys with their Good Vibrations and their surfing sound of California, and the Beatles with all their love hits, Magical Mystery Tour, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
I really think that they dawned in the new awareness age.
Yes. Yes. And so, see, that is 40 years ago. No, 50 years ago. But it began then, and then, of course, as each decade has its own focus and so forth, that I don't ever feel that the hippie energy died, and so of course it's now in this time of it's just amazing to me in my practice where I have people who are awakening at all different ages. It doesn't matter. One of my brand new clients is a 22-year-old, and one of my oldest clients is an 80-year-old. It just doesn't matter. They're all waking up to wanting more in their life, wanting to be in loving themselves. Like I say, first and foremost, we can't give what we don't have.
That's right.
And
it
so
seems. I'm sorry. It seems so important that people realize that you have to love yourself before anyone else can.
Oh, yes. And the same way with my students in regards to teaching them all the modalities through the years, which I'm retired from. I'm in private practice internationally, etc. But nonetheless, the things that I taught people that you cannot heal anyone further than you are healed. The same thing. So many of the, let's say, the newbies or the wannabes in this work don't do their own work. And you can tell right away, because, as an intuitive, I can anyways, if somebody doesn't have that intuitive ability to sense something greater than themselves and that they are working for something greater than themselves, their soul, identifying their soul, realizing why it is here and what it needs repaired too and released from other lifetimes and so forth, so that we can be all we can be in this lifetime.
Tell me, Reverend Judy.
And therefore,
I'm okay. Just finish off your sentence there, dear, and then I'd like to move on to a new question for you.
Oh no, go ahead. I could talk forever, so you can interrupt.
And I'm going to tell you something. If I had the time, I'd let you, because I find you to be a very interesting person with a great message to give forward. What does it mean to you being a medical intuitive?
Well, it's a heck of a lot more information that comes through than just normal presumptions, right? Excuse me. It's a sacred job as well, I want to say, because through my years of not only study but functioning and teaching, etc.,
right,
I have witnessed so many people who called themselves a medical intuitive but were really not doing that work. It is so much more than just intuiting what is going on, not only in the person's body, but what created it in the first place, the metaphysical reasons behind the presenting problems. And then once you discover what they are in conjunction with the Creator, you're witnessing the healing of those areas, of those items. The belief systems that are shifted must be shifted. I believe that's why reoccurring cancer patients will have it cut out or burnt out or chemoed out, whatever it may be, and yet the cancer will come back in another part of the body, if not the same part. It's because they have not cleared the presenting issues, that are underneath the cancer. The body is a messenger. So as a medical intuitive, I want to not only talk to the body through the person, help the person shift so they talk to their body differently, see life differently, and every situation in their life differently, so that their body responds accordingly. It's like we must keep our body as strong as possible for the whole purpose of the soul's mission here. The soul desires a healthy body to be within to do its job. And yet we take the body for granted. Of course, a lot of people don't understand how important it is to pay attention. Well, I pay attention. So I can give people that information underneath the challenge. For example, breast cancer itself, people might assume because it's in that fourth chakra region that it just simply are messages around self-love, not having enough self-love. Well, that's partially so. But any situations in that fourth chakra region, including the physical heart, the lungs, and so forth, are really connected as well to the second chakra of relationships. So relationship to self, relationship to your source, to your money, to people in general, to the universe. Every single kind of relationship is in that second chakra. And so as I educate people at the same time I'm working on them, it is that we're working, yes, for the self-love and to get everything in balance in all of those areas. Even when people do have physical challenges within that reproductive area of the second chakra of creativity as well as relationship, it is about, what are you creating in your life in that realm of for yourself with your, money? Relationship is really important to practically everybody. And so forth. And it may show up with prostate situations. It may show up in regards to fibroids, let alone ovary challenges or reproductive challenges. And so an example of a miracle healing, several years ago, a man from New York contacted me wanting to have some work with me while I was, for several years, 3 or 4 years, I taught once a year on a cruise ship that would, like the Royal Caribbean, going into the Caribbean cruise, and we would have a conference cruise. The Sea Angels Wellness Conference Cruise is the name of it. And so they would bring me in to be a presenter, keynote address speaker, and a teacher. And I would then always have a balcony suite type place where I would then hold sessions between my classes right there over the ocean. And so this gentleman was going to be on the cruise. He had signed up for my class, but he wanted a session with me while on the ship. And I let him know I was fully booked, but I'd be happy to work with him that week before the trip, and then we would continue our work after we got back from the trip, and I'd see him in class. All right, so then he told me what his presenting challenge was that was demonstrating for him, and that was prostate cancer. he said that his, I believe it's a TSA score, was like in the 300 or 400s or whatever, and that his doctor considered him to be basically terminal in a sense, even though he had just been diagnosed. And so I worked on him that particular day as I went and I viewed that prostate. I remember, and this was several years ago, so trying to get my memory back into that time frame, but it was very enlarged and it was very red, which is an indicator to me of inflammation, of course, but anger, a lot of anger and so forth in that realm. And so I worked on him, changed some of the belief systems involved, and in that one session, then we went on to the cruise, and I saw him in class. He took some of my trainings, and then the week after, we had another session booked, and he had seen, after he came back from the cruise, he had seen his doctor again, and the reports had come in, or he was having another test or whatever. But he had gone down from that 300-400 range to a -1. Wow. He was totally cancer-free. And I continued to work with him. He owns or at the time did, an insurance company in New York. And he admitted, he has tremendous anger problems. And everything he shared with me, I was amazed that his employees would even stay with him. As we continued our work, not only in keeping that cancer away and everything that created it in the first place, his employees began to call him Mr. Love. Everything was shifting in his life. Right. To this day, and that would have been probably back in 2005, 2006 approximately, so 10 years ago. Every once in a while, especially in the beginning, I always got emails from him that were saying, I love you, I'm cancer-free, and have continued to be. And once in a while, I'll still get an email from him, but it's always he's been cancer-free from the get-go.
Fascinating. Why then, with all this great work that medical intuitives can do, doesn't the established medical community open up their arms and say, please help us, teach us to do what you're doing, because the hospitals are overflowing. The doctors don't have enough time to see all their patients. There's a serious shortage of doctors. The medical community is going to hell in a handbasket. And here you are as a medical intuitive. And I've spoken to several over the years doing this show. And it boggles my mind on why you're not getting the recognition from the professional side of the medical community that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you guys deserve.
I love that. I agree totally with you. I think the top of my head, coming out of the top of my head, it's that we don't get kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, big pharma.
we don't prescribe medications, Sometimes I'll get messages from Source as to what supplements can help them.
Right.
And different suggestions of what the particular body parts are telling me that they need. The kidneys are often bringing forward the message of needing more water, which makes sense, of course. It's a common thing. But nonetheless, the organs are speaking as to what is needed. But nonetheless, I love that in my teachings, all through my teaching of medical intuition and the DNA and genetic tools, I have had countless medical doctors and nurses, all kinds of psychologists, psychiatrists, of course, spiritual people, ministers, all different professions. But medical doctors, I always loved to have them in my class because as I would be speaking to them about the truth of how the body works in certain in regards to certain areas and belief systems, I would speak to the doctor in the room. I would say, okay, doctor, isn't it so that this, and this works with this, and this? And they'd look sheepishly and go, yeah, you're right.
Unbelievable.
And these people then would, I haven't stayed in touch with all of them, but they would take it forward in their work. Many years ago, I've been here in Colorado now for 15 years, so it was back around the 14-year mark ago. I had a doctor come to my classes. Initially, a friend of hers who's an EMT here in Denver had taken my class, and she told her friend, the story goes, she told her friend, the ER doctor, that I'm the real deal. You have to go take her class. And so the doctor came. She took every class I was offering, even the Reiki training. She took everything. And we became friends for a while. We lost some contact because she moved on to Massachusetts. And she was teaching at the medical schools, too, and at Brown, and then now she's at UMass. And but how she would tell stories of how, as people came into the ER, they perform, the doctors and nurses perform what's called a triage, and that she passed what they were looking at, or past any early any of the diagnoses, she would intuitively get that something else was wrong with the person. She spoke of a particular story of a lady sitting in the ER waiting room, and as she walked by her, she intuitively knew the person had a gallbladder problem. And so the doctor, it was eventually turned over to whatever she had suggested. They also run some of those tests, and it was correct. And for a while, she would call me as well to ask me. Now, I didn't like what Carolyn Mace was doing with Dr. Sheely, where Dr. Sheely would call Carolyn Mace, knowing her abilities, and he'd have a patient he couldn't figure out what was going on with, and she would look at it from the intuitive standpoint and tell him. And so this doctor was using me in that way for a while, too.
All right, Reverend Judy, you and I have to take a commercial break here with the news at the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
Exonation, our guest this hour is Reverend Judy Miller-Dienst, and she is the president of the Mystery School at www.themysteryschool.org. She is a medical intuitive. She gives lectures on medical intuitiveness. She is a metaphysical teacher. She's clairaudient, clairvoyant, and clairsentient. And she, as you have heard, has been instrumental in miracle healings. Once again, her website, themysteryschool.org. I'm having a hard time with this one today. All right. Oh, maybe you should do that one, the Miracle School. Themysteryschool.org, and the good Reverend and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news, as we continue from our broadcast center here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Two short notices before we go to the news. If you're away from your computer, but you have your cell phone, or if you're near a cell phone line, or if you're near a telephone line or a phone booth, you can always listen to the X-Zone radio show at area code 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. And we'd also like to welcome all the listeners of the Paranormal Talk Radio Network, who are now carrying the X-Zone 5 nights a week from 8 p.m. until midnight. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, send me your emails. Tell me your ideas. Who would you like to have on the show? X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com, or by calling 213-401-0080. Don't forget, X-Zone Nation, November the 11th, Part 2 of the Michael Horn, Stanton T. Friedman debate on the Billy Meyer UFO case, right here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. The Reverend and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him. How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. The Carl O. Helvey Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My guest this hour is Reverend Judy Miller-Dienst. She is the president of The Mystery School. The website is www.themysteryschool.org. She's also authored A Conversion from Mind to Soul, 3 Steps to Recognizing and Bringing Forth Your Soul's Desire, which has been nominated for the Best Book Award in the Spiritual and Inspirational category by USA Book News. Congratulations on that, Reverend. That's fantastic.
Thank you. I'm excited. Yes.
Tell us about your book, dear.
I try to sum it up as easy as possible. Mm-hmm. When I speak of a conversion from mind to soul, I see that in the mind is where our ego lives. Mm-hmm. Pardon me. And I'm not referring to that beautiful soul ego, the personality, the soul personality we came in with, but the ego that is predominant on this planet, that the collective consciousness is just steeped in negativity. That particular ego is the destroyer. We live with it. When we come onto this planet, I don't believe that we're coming from the ego. No, we're coming from the light. And we're always looking through that soul's journey of finding our way back to whether we call it home or we call it God or the light or whatever. But traversing on this planet, we're steeped in what we then look at as obstacles on that path. And so the conversion is really getting the understanding and strong ego identification work so that we can witness what the ego is truly saying to us, what it is holding us in regards to what appear to be blocks. And then as and I teach tools, et cetera, in my work of how to, and how to identify it. And then once it's identified, we're going to then keep it away. We're never going to kill it because that it's egoic thinking. That we keep it away by being a conscious, aware person. And then we work in living in that learning self-love, so the love out to the others, healing, on and on and on, and what the soul is desiring and what that path wants to, what the soul wants that path to be. And so the book then was very spiritually given. Source, that means that God wrote it through me. Literally, I would sit down and go into a meditative state before writing, and I would just open myself up, and I would be reminded of certain stories to share. So the book is filled with processes of exercises of how to identify the ego, and then what to do within exercises to assist the person to realize more of what's going on in their life. There's also guided imagery. There's some of my stories, a lot of client stories, and then there are affirmative prayers at the end of each chapter. So the response that I get back, which has been overwhelming, I've never gotten a, knock on wood, negative comment from anyone, that it has, some people say my book is in tatters because I carry it around with me and I'm always referring to it. So it's very much of a guide to help people stay on track, to discover and stay on track on that journey of changing their life. I always recommend that every one of my clients have a copy of that book as a foundational tool to assist them in the teachings that we then get into, not only for their body healing, but obviously for their mental and soul healing and spiritual healing too. so it's well-rounded in that.
After writing your book, Reverend Judy, did your life change?
Oh, yes, it was changing in the midst of it as well. One of the biggest experiences that I had and noticed of change was in around 2008, I think it was. I had been receiving a lot of messages from people verbally and from Source too, saying that I needed to go into the ministry. And my answer was always a laugh and saying, I've had my own business for 20 years, 25 years. Why do I need another business? Because that's what centers of and churches really are. And plus, I know a lot of ministers and had a relationship with a minister. I know how it works. But the message kept getting stronger and stronger. When we say yes to what is being presented to us from our guidance, and we know it is not ego, but it is guidance, it is the light, it feels different, then when we say yes, every door opens up. Everything happens as it's meant to be. And so I said yes, and then I waited, and I knew that the next step would be presented, and it was. I was taking a particular foundational spiritual class in Science of Mind. When I went in that night, the instructor and another student was talking about a seminary. And when I heard that message inside my head. God talks to me. I can hear. They'd lock me up in the old days, and probably a lot would like to lock me up today. But nonetheless, I got that message of, listen up, Judy. This is what you've been waiting for. And so I asked for that website that the student was talking about. And when I came home that night, I pulled that up, and it was for a seminary in New York and for interfaith. And I just felt completely at home. And so I applied. I got a scholarship because of my background, et cetera. And I felt at that time I was about 75% done with my book. But I was struggling with the last two chapters, which didn't make any sense to me because it's what I was teaching. It was about, one was about grief work, death and dying. Another was about who is God, and so forth. And so I heard then when I entered the seminary, put the book aside until you're ordained. And I did. And it was a 2-year program. And maybe only once during that time, I tuned in, again with the Source, should I look at doing the book, working on the book? No, you wait until ordination. Okay, fine. Well, during the seminary, as I realize now how strong important seminaries hold the strength of personal change, I dug deeper. I worked to such a depth that was surprising to me. During the process as well, my youngest brother, was passing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I was there during his transition. There were many, and 2 other important people within the 6-month period also passed. So I was in death and dying, witnessing the grieving. I was experiencing these things at the same time studying. All right, so 2 years later then, I was ordained in June of 2011, and in July I heard, now get back to the book. When I went back, of course, a lot in the book was shifted because my viewpoints in a lot of ways had shifted as well, plus the last 2 chapters just rolled out. Yes, Source was providing, but you see, Source can only get in to provide us with what we're willing to hear, what we're willing to move into. And I needed to release more of my own stuff before I was able to receive those messages that then compiled the last 2 chapters.
You said during the writing of the book that, as I understood it, your book was channeled to you from God.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, doesn't God talk to everyone, but there are so many people who have forgotten to actually listen to him or listen for him?
Yes, or her. Yes, absolutely, because when we have the ego in our head, we might not know that it's there, but we're so used to it. It's familiar. It might not always be comfortable, but it is giving us the messages not only from our primary caretakers, but from the old organized religions training, from the media. And so all we get are these messages and confusion. And when we get that negative energy out of the way and we can really hear guidance, we're going to learn so much. Often before going to sleep at night is when I get the majority of the messages. In the middle of the night, source will wake me up and say, go write this down. Things like that. So when we have our minds, again, the conversion from that mind in its busyness, it's called the monkey mind, whatever we want to call it. The ego is known by many names. The shadow self, the devil, the dark side. When we see that we are not going to meet our goals the soul has in place and so forth, we're not going to move ahead into self-love as long as we live with that egoic energy. So once we have that out, then we're going to be able to hear and feel the energy clearer coming from the divine one energy. When I feel the egoic energy, it always seems to come to me from the left side of my body. When I hear messages from the divine, it always comes from the right side. That was an early indicator, too, for me to sort out who was talking. That's one of the first steps that people need to learn. That's why ego identification is so important.
Let me ask you this, Reverend Judy. I'm sorry we're running short on time here, and I still have so much I'd like to get in before we have to say so long for tonight. How do I know what my soul wants?
Good question, because so many people don't even understand what their soul is. But we can begin by looking back into our childhood in what we were being pulled to even then. And then through the years, what are we continually led to? My personal example was that around is the minute I went to school, grade school, for the very first time, I wanted to teach. I would come home from school, get my little friends all sit down in front of me, and I'd have a piece of paper up there writing like I was writing on the board, wanting to play school. They just got out of school. They glazed over. They didn't want to have to do that again. But it was my inner calling. And so through the years, I was a realtor in Southern California with multi-million-dollar properties for 7 years in the 80s. I ended up teaching salespeople, creating seminars for the families of real estate realtors, for what they needed to experience. All through my years, and when I get into spirituality or metaphysics, I began teaching basic classes in past life regression, and teaching classes in spirituality 101, intuitive development 101, and then they grew into bigger and more advanced classes, and then of course down the road medical intuition, and on and on and on. And because I never cared about being a school teacher in that realm, but I honor them, but in the realm of all this metaphysical studies and so forth. But so from my very get-go of being able to identify, I would play by myself. I grew up in the country with two little younger brothers that we never related in what we were playing. I would be pretending and creating stories. I've always been a storyteller, story writer, and be in little local newspapers and so forth when I was a kid. So I was always guiding and always teaching. That is my soul. That wasn't ego. Ego would prefer me to be down and out and living on the street in a corner someplace, you see. Ego doesn't want us to develop, to really know ourselves and develop that which is going to help us serve others, what is going to help us move forward in our life to be better than where we came in. I don't believe that, and this is in regards to the soul, I don't believe that when we die that we come back. I believe we come back in another lifetime, yes, but I don't believe that we go backwards. I believe we come in where we left off. And how that shows up in my life as well is that all of my my skills in the intuitive realm, all the clairs, always worked for me, and I was never afraid. Where I discovered later as I began teaching, and people would come to me for help because they had such fear of their intuitive abilities, that I knew I must have done this before. I could then, as I started to learn past lives for my own sake, I realized that I've taught all this before. That's where the mystery school name even came from. It was from those old times in ancient Egypt, and all of those parts of the world where only the priests and priestesses in the mystery school were taught these metaphysical things. The peons, the peasants, were not allowed to learn these things.
So what is the reason? What is the reason that we keep coming back?
I think it is to perfect our soul's oneness with the divine. When we're entrenched in the egoic energy and belief systems, there's no way we can be with God energy at the same time.
But why can't we why can't we just be taught by others who have gone through the process instead of us going through it over and over and over again?
Well, I do teach how people can, the Buddha said we can move into enlightenment right now. Mm-hmm. Well, then let's do it.
Right.
And so I'm a tough teacher, and I expect certain things from my people, and they're going to do their work, or they choose not to work with me, because this is the route. And I understand everybody has to take their own journey on that route to get to that place where they can at least feel more enlightened than where you came in. But because of the ego, the soul doesn't have the chance to often be learned about, to be able to, where people can really feel that aspect of themselves, to present and to shine that light within us, that light of the soul that shines out through our eyes and through our energy that we put out into the world. We can't project that out if we don't understand what it is within us. Mostly people are just living from the dark energy. That this planet is called a dark planet for a reason. It's very steeped in the can't-dos.
Well, and so I don't know. I rarely hear that phrase that this planet is called a dark planet. And why? Explain that to me.
Well, the energy here, if we look at maybe 70 countries at any time at war. And in our own communities, we see, yes, I understand that people in their souls have their own journey, so they may be living on the street, homeless and ill or whatever, and this is their path, and we don't judge. However, that energy is even there where, it's so different for everybody, because some people are told as a young child that they're ugly. They're the ugly duckling, or that even though they want to be a singer and they feel that their soul wants to sing,
in my opinion, those kind of parents should be shot. Because I think,
know there's a lot of bad ones.
Well, let me ask you this. We've only got about 2 minutes left. You said that this is called the dark planet because of all the wars that are going on and all the negativity. But how do we know, Reverend, that there are not other planets out there that are far worse off than we are, that we may be, in fact, the bright planet?
I love that, because I believe in all the other planets and all of the other opportunities of learning. But I feel that I remember a past life as a Palladian. I remember clearly of only speaking mentally. It wasn't speaking through what we know, as the mouth and the voice that way. It was the telepathic way. I know that there are other opportunities, but this planet is so, the energy here is just so negative that, and I'm very sensitive to energy, that just going out into the world, basically, that's why I love living in the Boulder area. It's, crystal energy here. It's very uplifted energy compared to, I don't like being in Denver, per se, because the energy is darker. There's more crime there. It's all major cities. Sure. But the planet and the egoic energy, if the egoic energy is going to be on other planets, then they're going to have their challenges too. So when we look at only two main emotions, love and fear, and we look at fear as where ego lives and presents, and love is where God lives and presents, then we get to make a choice at any given time. What do we want our life to be? Do we want it to be one that is enlightened no matter what crises may come, we handle the situations differently? Or do we want to live in fear and the dark energy that also exists? In meditation several years ago, I asked guidance, God, to give me the percentage of negativity on this planet and the percentage of light. And I got 85% dark, 15% light.
Reverend, you and I have to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Exo Nation,
thank you.
My guest this hour has been Reverend Judy Miller-Dienst, www.themysteryschool.org. And I've got to tell you something. I don't agree with Reverend Judy when she says that this is a dark planet and that there's only two words, basically love and what was the other word, Craig? Anyway, I can think of some other ones. Love, compassion, giving, caring, understanding. So in my book, this is a bright planet. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.